Hi guys, back again. I am here with FC Dallas's finest soccer reporter, broadcaster, and writer, Garrett Melcer. Garrett, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Absolute pleasure. No, thanks for coming along because it's really exciting. I mean, wanting to do FC Dallas for a little while with somebody. I think you are the absolute perfect person to do it with. So, tell everyone sort of what you do, how FC Dallas is important in your life.
Well, I work in the club's media department. I think my title is digital content creator. But basically, that involves there's a lot of writing about the team, doing interviews with the players. I do radio and some Apple TV stuff as well. So basically, a lot of talking and writing about FC Dallas as close as I can. And I became a fan of the team back in 2005. I grew up in Austin, which is about 4 hours south of Dallas, but we didn't have a team back then, of course. My dad and I did the drive up fairly often to watch games live. So it's cool that I'm able to work for him now because they've been a big part of my life for a long time.
That's fantastic. So it is a bit of a boyhood dream for you to be working there as well.
For sure.
Fantastic. We'll get into a bit of that history, as we go. But was soccer important to you from a young age? Is that how you got into the fandom?
Yeah. I started playing in Austin around like 3 or 4 in a YMCA league, and then kept doing club soccer in Austin up until high school. Then quickly realized that I was not going to be going pro or going to any major college or anything like that. So decided just to stick to the high school soccer and play with my buddies and save my parents a lot of money. The club stuff obviously gets really expensive, especially back then. So. And then in college, just played intramurals and stuff like that, and still play some pickup nowadays. But always watching a lot of MLS and the European stuff as well.
Yeah, gosh, yeah, that pay to play model. We don't really have that in the UK over here. So yeah, it comes up quite a lot. How that's a barrier for some people. But yeah, maybe we should try and do something about that in the future. Raise some money or something. That's a good idea. We'll park for the future. So yeah, with FC Dallas, obviously that that started. Were you a fan? I can't remember when the club started. Now, so was it from a very young age you sort of latched on to Dallas as your team?
Yeah, so 2005 was the first season I started following really closely. That was the first year that they became FC Dallas. I'm sorry, my dog is like coughing. I hope the mic isn't picking that up.
That's all right. It's not coming through.
The team started in '96 as Dallas Burn as one of the original clubs, and they were playing in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas proper. And then 2005 they rebranded as FC Dallas with the new kits like the one you have on. And then they started playing up here in Frisco, which is about 30 minutes north of the city. And that's actually where I live now because I wanted a very short commute. So I live right by work.
Fantastic. That is awesome. We'll come to the shirts in a minute because I had to seek this one out. It took quite a while, but I couldn't resist it. But anyway, we'll come to that. So what does your typical sort of game day look like? Are you there the whole day? Are you working, in the club? What's the sort of the program for you?
So it's changed a lot over the years, depending on my role. Now, I get there 4 or 5 hours before kickoff and do pregame stuff. Talk to some of the players before they get in just to see how they're doing. I do sideline commentary for our radio broadcast since Apple TV took over. Obviously, Apple's doing all the television broadcast stuff now. Used to do pregame shows and sideline reporting for the television broadcast, but now it's all just radio stuff. And then that's during the game, obviously. And then after the game, player and coach interviews in the press conference and stuff like that, just getting all the sound interviews for our match day recap, just as like the document that we send out with all the quotes and things and description of the game and what happened and things like that. But yeah, the game days are a lot of fun. That's what you spend all week, doing the hours for is that game day. So the games are, that's what you hope for.
Fantastic. And how's it been this season for you?
Dude, this season's been crazy. Apple TV really turned a lot of what we do in the media department kind of on its head, especially my role. Yeah. This year, there's a thing called the First Team Report, basically like a game-by-game preview show for Apple TV. So I was in charge of putting that together and doing all the interviews and stuff for that. So my normal duties of like writing feature stories and stuff like that took a little bit of backseat as we kind of worked through all the Apple TV stuff because they also needed reports for our reserve team and MLS Next Pro and all the academy teams and things like that. So my year was very focused on making sure Apple got what they needed, and keeping the club compliant in terms of that. But it's obviously good. I mean, from a fan's perspective, Apple TV is huge. Like it's amazing to be able to watch every game in whatever country you're in. So yeah, definitely a big learning curve this year for me personally, but it was a good season overall. And it was a weird one for Dallas. The team, we went through a ton of injury problems, so it was tough for us to have our best players on the field at all times. So it's never as fun when you're reporting on a team that's not, winning every game or every other game, and you're kind of stuck in the doldrums a little bit. But we got through it, made the playoffs. So all in all, a good season.
Fantastic. That's really good to hear you say it. Yeah, because I mean the results have been mixed, but it's like, if you really enjoyed the season, then I think it's well worthwhile. Isn't it? There's nothing worse than being having an absolutely miserable season. But it's no, that's good that you're feeling joyful about it. So let's get on to the team then. Who's the who do you think are the most key players? Obviously, there's one that jumps out to me, even with my rudimentary knowledge. But take us through who the key guys are in the squad.
I'm guessing you're thinking of Jesus Ferreira off the top. Yeah, the starting striker, plays for the U.S. national team. What's cool about his story is he's a homegrown player. His dad, David Ferreira, was the MLS MVP in 2011, I think it was, or 2010 actually. So yeah, his dad came from Colombia, moved his family up here obviously to play, and then his son Jesus was in the academy from the time he was 8 or so. And then he obviously went up through the ranks, and now he's been playing in the first team since 2019 mostly. I think he debuted when he was like 15, but only played a few games. But he's really grown into a huge player for us, and for the national team at times. So it's cool covering him just because he kind of transcends just the little FC Dallas sphere, and is more on the national stage as well. But it's not just him, obviously. Alan Velasco is our record signing, young winger out of Argentina. Fortunately, he did tear his ACL like 3 weeks ago. In the playoffs against Seattle. So a really, really tough injury for him. But yeah, he's super exciting. I would say the comparison I would make to a player that we'd all know is Eden Hazard. There's a lot of similarities in terms of dribbling ability, playmaking ability, maybe not as much clinical finishing in front of goal as you would want from a star winger like that, but he does all his work kind of in the midfield and providing for other players. So yeah, he's a great one to watch. And last one I'll mention, Martin Pass, goalkeeper. I know goalkeepers aren't usually the stars, but Martin's I would say the most underrated keeper in the league. He wasn't involved in any of the end of season awards or anything like that, but he definitely saved us at a few different points this season. He's a Dutch goalkeeper. We brought him in originally on loan from FC Nijmegen or something like that. Or I think he's from Utrecht originally, but he bounced around in the Dutch league for a little while. He's still only like 25 or 26, so he could definitely make another move back to Europe at some point. But yeah, he's a really top keeper, and he's great for the media department because he loves giving interviews. He's very involved with the other like Dallas teams. He goes to all the like Cowboys games, Mavs games, and hockey games as well. Cool. So yeah, so he really kind of took the bull by the horns in terms of getting ingratiated with the culture of Dallas and the other sports teams. So yeah, he's one to watch as well.
Fantastic. He's just not just a mercenary coming there for a payday. He's really getting into it, and that's so lovely to see as well. That's really enjoying the local culture and that sort of stuff. So we talked about just then Jesus Ferreira coming through the youth team, but Dallas is a bit famous for that, isn't it? Bringing through players.
Yeah, no, that's definitely I would say the thing the club is most known for nationally. The Hunt family, who owns the club, put a lot of emphasis on the youth development and the talent within DFW and Texas in general earlier than most clubs did. I would say now a lot of clubs have kind of caught up in terms of their academy production and whatnot, but Dallas started doing it right around when the academy system was installed in this country around 2008. So we started getting our first like homegrown players to reach the first team around like 2010, 11. And then there's some big players have come through for like the national team: Weston McKennie, Ricardo Pepi, Brian Reynolds, Ferreira as well. So yeah, a lot of players who have gone on to do bigger things in this league and also in Europe, and then especially for the national team. I think I remember when the national team named its World Cup roster for 2022. I think there were like 7 players who had roots in the Dallas Academy at some point. So not all of them, played for the first team. Eventually, like Weston McKennie left for Europe before he ever signed a contract or anything. But yeah, a lot of talent has come through the academy. So that's a big focus of my job as well. Is just who's the next guy who's going to make it and be a big star for us. So that's a super fun part of it. I really like watching that because there's players who I watched at like U15 level or so playing in youth tournaments and whatnot. And now they're in the first team. And it's just really cool to watch that progression go on because it kind of makes it feel more like the club feels more like a family in that way rather than just bringing in a new star every season because we're not doing that.
Absolutely, and why not? I mean, that's the way to do it, and that's what they call the sort of proper way, isn't it? And there's some real icons. I was looking at the list earlier on of who's come through that academy, and it is fantastic. It's a real all-star list, isn't it? So they must be doing something right over there. Actually, one thing that this sort of leads me on to actually is an article that you wrote about one of the players at Dallas who had a very interesting start to life and journey into MLS with Bernard Kamungo.
Yeah. I can't believe I didn't mention him when you were asking about the players to watch. Actually, this year was me doing Apple TV and then basically writing about Bernard Kamungo because his background's crazy. Born in the Nyarugusu refugee camp in Tanzania, his parents fled Congo during a civil war in the 90s. He grew up there till 14. Then moved here, not actually Dallas, to Abilene, Texas, which is probably about 2 hours away or so. And then played like high school soccer, like local stuff. And then we found him in an open tryout for our reserve team in 2021. They do the open tryout every year, and they find 1 or 2 players they'll bring to preseason, maybe get a contract. And then he was like a star in that. And what's funny about that open tryout in particular is like I actually participated in that one as like a content piece we were doing. Like I was mic'd up. Yeah, and we were like basically the premise was like, how hard is it to make a pro team from an open tryout? And so like I was just in there competing. Like I've played soccer my whole life, so I wasn't the worst player, but I was far from the best. And he was the best. He apparently I didn't actually see him. We played in separate games in that one, but the coaches were like, "Oh yeah, this kid's going to be with us for preseason at least." And he got the contract with the second team. Did really well his first 2 years there. I think he scored like 17 goals in the third division last year. Got the first team contract, and then this year he's just gone from strength to strength, scoring in some huge games for us. I think most people probably heard of him when Inter Miami and Messi came to Dallas for the Leagues Cup quarterfinals, and Bernard scored a great goal in that one. And it was like, geez, 3 years ago you were playing high school soccer, now you're scoring against Messi. Like it's kind of like a Hollywood movie in that way, where I'm sure they're going to make one at some point.
Absolutely,
he's been fun to watch.
Yeah, that is an incredible story. It really is. And I really encourage people to go and read your article. It is fascinating. So I think I got it through your Twitter or your website, one of the two. But
yeah, on Twitter,
we'll
I've been sharing a lot of Bernard stats.
Anyway, so.
Perfect. Thanks.
We'll make sure. Go and find that story though, definitely. A bit more about Dallas. I mean, what's the fan culture like around soccer? Because you mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of competition sports-wise around where you are.
Yeah, a ton of competition. Like obviously the Dallas Cowboys are one of the biggest sports names in the world, up there with like Manchester United and Barcelona. Whenever you see like the valuations for sports teams, they're always in like the top 3, if not number 1. So when you're competing against that, it's tough. And then obviously we have basketball, hockey, and the Texas Rangers who just won the World Series. So it's definitely a crowded market for sports, and we're a little bit out of Dallas as well. So that kind of goes against us in terms of getting the draw. But there's some really passionate supporters who I give a ton of credit to, who are there through the thick and thin in terms of the team's not doing well, they're there. They're super loud. El Matador is one of the supporters groups, as well as the Dallas Beer Guardians. So they go back and forth with their different chants in the stadium and kind of bring it to life. And this year they got some really cool tifos that I hadn't seen before, where it's actually a guy down in Argentina. They have basically doing likenesses of the players, and they're like really detailed and they look just like the guys. And so they've had some awesome ones. So ton of credit to them, because the stadium atmosphere wouldn't be what it is without them. And I would say Dallas isn't always the easiest team to support because of all that competition in the city. FC Dallas isn't the easiest team to support when you look at other teams in MLS, and They have the brand new stadiums. They're sometimes the only game in town. They're buying star players. That's kind of not really the ethos of this team. And so credit to those guys for being there week in and week out.
So the Toyota Stadium, is that the home ground?
Correct, yeah.
And how many does that hold?
I think it's 19,000 or so. So it's kind of changed over the years because it used to be 20 even, I think, when it was built in 2005. Right. But 2018, they built the National Soccer Hall of Fame in the south end of the stadium. So it's kind of built into it, and that kind of changed the capacity and whatnot. But it's cool to have that because if you go, it's basically like an interactive museum, and so you can go and see different like jerseys, World Cup trophies, women's World Cup trophies. Not the men have won any, but kits from like from the NASL, like basically just like an anthology of American soccer history all in one place. So that place is super underrated, but it's definitely changed the atmosphere in the stadium because they removed some seating and had to move the supporters for that reason. So it's changed a little bit, but it's a really cool museum. I would encourage anybody who's in Frisco for whatever reason or going to a Dallas game to check that out as well, because it's I would say kind of like a hidden gem in some ways.
Fantastic. That's definitely somewhere I'm going to put on the bucket list. That sounds like a fantastic thing. While I go to a game as well, obviously. It's got to be there. So what about the rivalries? We've talked on the channel a little bit before about the rivalries around your area, and there's certainly no lack of rivals for you to feud with, is there?
No, yeah, definitely. Two big ones. Obviously, the other two teams in Texas, Houston and Austin. The Houston one's been going on for a really long time. Houston moved from San Jose in 2006, and then they won the MLS Cup at our stadium in Dallas. Yeah, which is kind of a sore spot. And I was actually at that game when I think I was like 11 or 12. I drove up for that game. And I'm sorry to say I was supporting Houston because like the rivalry was so new. It didn't really mean much to me. Also being in Austin, I didn't have like the classic Houston and Dallas rivalry, and still didn't mean quite yet. The Houston one's good though. Yeah, it's been going on a long time. And then we also fight over El Capitan each season. So it's basically like a cannon, like a American Civil War era cannon. And the team that, I would look it up because it's kind of hard to explain what it looks like, but it's basically the winner of the regular season series gets to keep it at their stadium. And we used to shoot it off, not an actual cannonball, but like a blank or whatever, and it'd be super loud after every goal. I think it doesn't function anymore, unfortunately. The story is that it was broken the last time Houston had it. I don't know if that's true, but it doesn't shoot anymore. So it's kind of more ceremonial than anything, more of a symbol. But we've kept it the last, I think, 4 out of 5 years or something. So it's been in Toyota Stadium a lot in the last few years. And then there's Austin FC, who only joined the league in 21, I believe. And so that's definitely a much newer rivalry. But it's especially last year when both Dallas and Austin were near the top of the table. They met in the playoffs. Austin won, unfortunately. But the rivalry got ramped up a lot then because there's two of the better teams in the league. Had some great games against each other with a ton of goals. And also every time we go down there, they have an amazing atmosphere in Austin. And for me, it's funny because obviously I'm from there. So all my friends, my friends from back home are always texting me like, "This one's ours. We got it. Like, come on, we're better than Dallas in every way," and all this stuff. So that one is for me personally the biggest, but I'm kind of a particular case being from that city. And growing up there without a team to support, I had no choice but Dallas, because that was even before Houston joined the league. So, but it's good to have the three teams in there because it spices it up a little bit.
Absolutely, having those proper close rivalries, and like I say, even a proper sort of trophy to hand over a cannon anyway. But yeah, and then especially when they broke it, you can't trust those dynamos with anything, can you?
Guess not, man. Because it's a shame, because it was great when it would shit off after goals. It added a lot to the game day experience. I mean, it'd make you jump. It was so loud. But yeah, it's we need to look into getting the new cannon or fixing that one up or something, because we definitely lost a little bit without that.
I love that. It's the stuff that's unique to each sort of culture, each team that has those little traditions that really, really draws me in. I absolutely love those sort of things, because you can't be anywhere else in the world.
Trading a cannon back and forth is a very Texan thing for sports teams to be doing, with like the come and take it flag that has the cannon. It basically looks like that, if anybody knows what that looks like. So it's a fun rivalry for sure.
That is fantastic. And I think personally, I may get flack for this, but sartorially, you definitely have the best shirts out of the three. I mean,
I appreciate
Austin,
that.
okay, the green's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Houston, orange isn't really my color, but this thing, I say I did hunt for this, and I absolutely love it. I saw this. I can't remember where I saw it the first time, but I looked it up, and I can't remember. Do you know what year this was? I can't remember it off the top of my head.
So I don't know officially. It has the old logo on the armband, the old
Yeah,
MLS
yeah.
logo. So it's got to be pre-2014. I would say we were wearing blue hoops between like 09 and 13. My guess would be it's like a 2012. That would be, I'd have to ballpark it there, but I'm not
That
100% sure.
makes sense.
Somewhere around there, I would say. I had a
Yeah.
similar one. My first soccer kit of any kind was the first FC Dallas kit because of Dallas burned before. So the 2005
Oh, yeah,
red
right.
hoops kit had like my last name on the back, like customized as a gift from my dad for Christmas or something like that.
I love.
Yeah, got it signed by the team for like one of the games.
Cool.
Too small to fit me now, much too small to fit me now. But I think it's at home somewhere back in Austin.
Oh, one to frame. That's one for posterity.
100%. I really need to do that.
Which has been your favorite shirt over the years? You have one that stands out?
Oh, that's tough. So it's going to be one of the early ones. We've kind of gone away from the traditional red and white hoops. Like I think people call them like the Where's Waldo kit. So
Yes,
I think we went away from that for like marketing purposes in terms of getting people to be wearing our jersey. And it's kind of tough when you look like Waldo walking around the city.
Yeah.
But for me, because I have that symbolic attachment to it because that's what I grew up with. It has to be probably the 05 or 06 red and white striped kit. It stands out. You know what it is. It's definitely a soccer kit. I think they stole the hoops nickname from Celtic or something like that.
That makes sense.
But,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But no one else in MLS has the hoops quite like that. And I wish we would go back to the very traditional hoops, even though you do kind of look like Waldo.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is very similar to a Queen's Park Rangers shirt.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, the blue for sure.
That distinct hooped pattern on there, but like I say, pretty much no one else does, to be honest. So it's it's very distinctive and very cool. Like I said, I searched for this for a long time before finding it and getting it on eBay, and it's starting to crack a little bit, but I'm keeping hold.
It looks good from here. Looks good from
one
here.
of my favorite ones. Thank you very much. So going back to the team right now, what do you think Dallas needs? Are you happy with the coach? Are you happy with the attack? Is it what do you think is something to build on for 2024?
I'm definitely happy with the coach, Nico Estevez. This was his second season, and last year he helped the team earn its best like year-over-year improvement. Went from I think like 31 points to 50 something points. So it was a 20-point plus improvement in one season. So that was kind of unheard of for this club at least. And this year was tougher in terms of the results, but I think I would put 90% of that on just the injury troubles we've had. I mean, there were times where we were playing our backup left back at right wing. And yeah, we basically just didn't have a midfield for most of the summer, especially. And then even Jesus Ferreira, he was playing games, but he wasn't 100% fit after he played for the national team in the summer.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So yeah, it was just a really tough season in general. But in terms of next season, because Alan Velasquez's injury is going to last, for a while, ACL done at the end of this year. So, he's, it's even if he comes back in the middle or latter third of next season, you wonder how long it'll take him to be back to who he was prior to the injury, just because it's just a tough one, especially for a tricky winger who uses acceleration and speed and agility to get by people. It's a tough injury to come back from. So, I would look at another attacking player, like a goal scoring winger, and maybe a big time center forward, even though Jesus Ferreira plays that position. Oftentimes he looked better as a second striker, kind of floating player, quasi number 10, 9.5 is kind of like, I think, his best spot. So if I were picking the team as a general manager and, buying players, I think I'd go for a big time center forward. And prior to this, I would have said defensive mid because we'd kind of gone a few seasons chopping and changing that position. But right at the end of the year, we brought in Asier Iaramendi, former Real Sociedad, Real Madrid midfielder, defensive 6. And
fantastic. Yeah,
I would say he's the top 3 players ever played for this team. Just his technique, his vision, his anticipation of the game defensively, just the way he reads the game is I mean, I would put him in a top 3 in that position in the league at this point. So, and he's locked in for another year. So he's 34. He's getting on a bit, but his talent and just, he's not a player that relies on physicality. Obviously, he plays it all with his brain. So I would say that position is pretty locked down for now. So yeah, I'd go center forward just to shore up that attack with Velasco. Probably going to be missing most of the year, unfortunately.
Yeah, is Velasco one of your DPs?
He is, yeah, young DP. So our DPs this year, Velasco, Ferreira, and Paul Areola. And Paul struggled with injuries a lot this year too. So we definitely didn't get a ton of production from our DPs just because of injuries. So hopefully with an off season of rest for those guys, at least Areola and Ferreira can hit the ground running next season. And then you have that third DP spot. And, if you don't fill that, you're leaving some points on the table just by the nature of the league.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, big striker up front to fill that spot would be perfect for 2024. And then presumably, well, not presumably, assuming you do get somebody else in that spot, where do you think you could get to next season?
It's a really good question. Just the parity in this league, it's so hard to predict anything.
Yeah, it really is.
The first year that Nico Esteves came in, I was like, if we make playoffs, I'm happy. And then we finished top 3 and went to the conference semis. So, and then this year I had the highest of hopes. Coming off that, I was like, we're guaranteed top 2. We'll be fighting for Supporter Shield maybe if everything goes right. I know nothing went right really. So, again, looking at this year, it's tough. But if we can avoid the injury bug, and we bring in a second goal scorer just to help Ferreira out up top, yeah, I think top 3 is reasonable to hope for. But that 4 through 6 is where I think is probably most likely to shake out. But again, you never know in this league. Someone gets hot towards the end of the year, and they get a little lucky with results here and there. If you looked at the West towards the end of the season, if you won 2 games, you could go from like 9th to 3rd. So it's like
really tight, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was crazy, and it was tough for me, trying to write and figure out like where we're going to be and try to give people a prediction and all this stuff. Like it was kind of a nightmare to trying to figure out all the permutations of what could happen in the final few days of the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say hope for like a 3rd place finish, but kind of expect a 5th or so. That'd be my prediction.
That sounds like a pretty good season to me, though. Yeah, that's
a good season. It's a good season.
Yeah,
and that's all contingent on not having our whole team fall apart again, unfortunately. With the injury stuff.
Getting Velasco back at some point, and not no one else falling over either. But any prospects from the youth side of things that you know of at the moment that are up and coming that might make a splash next year?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's a lot of different talented players down there. I'll go with a player who's already signed his first team contract. His name is Nolan Norris. He's a kind of position right now, but he's a defender. He grew up playing left back, but he probably doesn't have the speed to stay out wide as a fullback. Might not have the height to play center back. He's probably about 5'11", 6 foot. But he's really good on the ball. So I could see him settling as a 6, maybe. He did play a little bit for the first team this year during the injury crisis as an 8, as a box-to-box, which is, a tough thing to ask an 18-year-old to do on his debut, playing out of position. But yeah, he's very mature for his age. He's still growing into his body for sure, but he's got all the talent to be like a really solid player, especially with all his positional flexibility. So I could definitely see him doing something next year. He's in all the youth national team stuff. He was in and out of the team, or in and out of the facility a lot, just because he was playing for various U.S. men's national team at the youth level. So he's definitely one to watch.
Fantastic. Yeah, that definitely one to keep an eye on there. I can see you, it could be another one of these superstars that comes right through again, because
possible.
We've seen the contribution you've already made to the national team. It's absolutely fantastic. So, actually, just finally on that, looking at the national team, we've got the tournament coming up in a couple of years' time now. How do you think that might shape out from your point of view? As you might have a couple of your players in there
for 26.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's got to be the tournament that we have circled for a while now. When you look at the this crop, this generation, really, like when you think of Pulisic, McKennie, Tyler Adams, Tim Weah, Yunus Musa, all these guys who did well in the last World Cup.
Yeah.
And the average age was like 23 or something like that, and that was with some older guys who probably won't be there. But like with the real talent and the real core being all in their early 20s, 26 are all going to be hitting their peak roughly right at the right time for that tournament, and it's at home. You got to hope that the team can go deep in that one. It's so tough when it's in the knockout stages. You never know who you might get up against in the round of 16. Sometimes you get a soft run up until the semifinal. Like we've seen that before with some surprising teams getting to the last four. But I think you go big, and you hope that they can get to that last four and maybe at least play in a third place game or something like that. I think that would probably be a success for this group. But again, yeah, you just never know in knockout. You can have one bad half, like we did against the Netherlands this time around. One bad half where you concede 2 goals in transition, and it's tough to get back into that, especially when you're playing these savvy teams that have Virgil van Dijk at the back. You're not going to sneak any lucky goals against them, most likely. So
if you're lucky enough to come against
stage.
England, you might, but not against Van Dijk.
Maybe if Rob Green's in goal again, that'll help us.
Yes, indeed. Infamous, that incident.
Clint Dempsey, man. Clint Dempsey.
Yeah, absolutely. Was he one of yours?
He was. Yeah, he was the one who scored that goal against Rob Green. He never played for Dallas, but he grew up in Texas, Nacogdoches, and he played for some of the pre-FC Dallas youth teams here in Dallas. I think it was the Dallas Texans or something like that. So I watched him play in the MLS Cup final 2005, and I think also 2006 as well for the New England Revolution. So I was always been a fan of his, him being a Texas guy. And then watching him play for Fulham, that was really cool. And then, so yeah, he's always been a favorite of mine, and obviously scored that quite lucky goal against Rob Green.
They all count.
They all count, especially in the World Cup. They all count. You take what you can get.
Absolutely, but I just think that, it's already going to be a very, very big stage. I think it will really help MLS's popularity. It has to engender that sort of football, soccer culture again in a lot of people. But I think especially if USA go a long way in the tournament, it could really have a huge impact, couldn't it?
Yeah, and I see it every year or every World Cup year. It's like every time you have a World Cup that the US is involved in, so not 2018. It's like 2 or 3 more of my immediate friends are now on board for the national team or for soccer in general. They'll get into European stuff or MLS. And so it seems like every year the World Cup just kind of like grabs a few more bodies, a few more here and there. And these are international tournaments happening sometimes at weird hours of the day and whatnot. And so now with one that's in our country with a team that could maybe go deep, that's, I think, MLS and all soccer people who are working in the sport or just fans of it in this country are kind of pinning their hopes on that and say, look, this is what could take our league or our teams or just general interest to the next level in this country. And I don't see why it can't. Like, it's going to be the biggest World Cup to date, I believe. 48 teams or something like that, which is, you hope that doesn't dilute the talent pool and make for some dead rubber games. But I think the soccer worldwide, I think, is improving with like stuff like the Nations League, where these teams aren't just getting blown up by 12 goals. They're playing teams that are closer in their skill level. So that's helping. I would say that's kind of raising the tide of all international teams. So I totally think 48 will work. And then, it's going to be tough to get tickets for all these games, of course. But I do think a lot of people will be sucked into it. And hopefully, 10, 20% of those stay on board.
Absolutely, especially it's so spread out as well. I've got tentative plans to come over for 26 to try and get to a game or 2 over there just to experience it. It'd be so cool.
Well, Dallas is hoping to get the final, so that would be huge. That'd be huge. Dan Hunt, who the president of FC Dallas, one of the owners, he's the chairman of the Dallas 26 World Cup bid. So he helps us get games, first of all. And then he's stated pretty publicly that, they believe the final should be played here. And it seems like there's a decent chance it might happen. You never know with FIFA, obviously. But that'd be huge for FC Dallas in particular, just to have the World Cup, the biggest sporting event in the world in our city. That would, in terms of traction, that'd be huge.
Where would they play it?
AT&T Stadium, so that's Cowboy Stadium over
Oh,
in
that's
Arlington.
right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
about 40 minutes from Frisco. I think it's like 30 minutes from Dallas. Yeah, only two of the Dallas teams are actually in Dallas, just because it's tough
Okay,
to
yeah,
build.
another one of these
Yeah, tough to
controversial
build
ones. Yeah.
stadiums the size that these Texas owners want to build in the city proper. So they usually go out into the surrounding suburbs to build these stuff. Makes it a little easier. But Texans, we love to drive, so we're all used to it.
Fantastic, fantastic. No, that sounds fantastic. I think it is really something to look forward to. Yeah, it could be a massive event for everybody involved. But that's fantastic. Garrett, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you let everybody know who's watching where they can find you and your work online?
My work is fcdallas.com. Yeah, you'll see a lot of articles on there. And really the only place I'm active on the internet is Twitter in terms of publicly. So if you just search Garrett Melcer, first name, last name, that's my Twitter handle, or X or whatever they're calling it now. But yeah, you'll see me tweeting about FC Dallas, the national team players that are from Dallas, or the academy at least. Lots of little stats and figures and stories about Bernard Kamunga they're all there.
It's just brilliant. I glanced at it earlier on and I'm reading the whole thing. But please do go if you're watching this, go and read that article. It's so inspiring. It's absolutely beautiful. But Garrett, thank you so much. I really enjoy your work and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Tom.
Cheers.